I thought it was very, very powerful.
Okay, so the beginning of the Maamar that we're learning now is a review of the Maamar of the previous Rebbe. And the
beginning of this
Maamar is a review of the previous Rebbe's Maamar, pretty much. Rebbe's Shinuyim Vayisafis. Everyone said that when you learn the same concept as it's delivered from various Rebbeim, and you try to analyze the difference, that's called a limud yuni. That's called a very deep way of learning. So I'm not going to try to do that right now, but what I wanted to say was that in the next part of the discourse, which is the full body of the discourse, Rebbe analyzes the previous Rebbe's discourse and does the limud yuni and does a very deep analysis of the previous Rebbe's Maamar, and gives us a whole new flavor of the Maamar of the Frierdiker Rebbe. The previous Rebbe in the Maamar begins the discourse with what concept number one. Concept number one is that he calls it a dvar pella, calls it a wondrous thing. As everyone's explained, the wondrous thing is something that's not something which is in a different realm. It's not higher or lower or farther or closer. It's something which is just it's a paradox which is totally beyond comprehension. And the wonder is, how is it that we accepted the Torah fully during the time of the story of Purim, and we didn't accept the Torah when we got the Torah, when there's full revelation of Hashem, a greater revelation than we experienced when we crossed the Yam Suf, greater revelation than we had when we left Egypt, the greatest revelation, and that, yet we weren't fully accepting of the Torah. We weren't fully vulnerable to totally. We weren't fully vulnerable. But when did we become fully vulnerable to really accept the Torah and say we want to do this? Was precisely in the time of the story of Haman, when Haman made the decree against the Jewish people, and it was harder than a regular exile. Every exile we learned yesterday, the Jewish people, the first exile, also didn't listen to Moshe. There was consumed with godliness. They couldn't imagine leaving Egypt, and every exile also has challenges in Torah mitzvahs. We don't have to explain that, right? We all have challenges. But besides that, during the time of the decree of Haman, there was a much greater, worse scenario where Haman says that all Jewish people are going to be killed, and you're able to get out of this decree by forfeiting your life. By forfeiting your Judaism. And yet, the Alter Rebbe's words are, nobody thought the whole year about giving up their Judaism.
Sorry, what does it say that there is a substitute?
It was possible. How do we know they could? Because the decree was against Jews. So if you were to decide to give up your Judaism, you wouldn't be under the decree.
Thank you.
So, but the decree is a big chiddush. The decree was for a full year,
Fine.
and the Alter Rebbe said, no one ever thought that they're going to give up their Judaism. How does the Alter Rebbe know that every single man, woman, and child thought for the entire year? But how are we going to explain? The Alter Rebbe is telling us, this is a quote from the Alter Rebbe, that no one thought of that, which is just okay. Yeah. So besides the fact that they didn't give up their Jewishness, they had more sacrifice. They also overtly kept their mitzvahs, and they did it in public, and they gathered together. So there was a lot of sacrifice, and this was all inspired by Mordechai, and the Rebbe says that this is the meaning of their acceptance of the Torah. The acceptance of the Torah means that it was done with Mesiras Nefesh, it was done with sacrifice, it was done from a deeper place. And that explains the words in the Torah, Kostas Lamoyer. Kostas Lamoyer means that crushed to be a source of light. We asked, I should have said, if the Torah is talking about crushing olives and using the olives to give light, they should have said crushed to give light. Why is it crushed to be a source of light? And so the previous Rebbe explains that by the Jewish people being crushed in Galus, that's how they are able to reach the source of their light. It's able to reach the very core of their neshama. That's what the previous Rebbe explains in the discourse that we reviewed. And then the previous Rebbe goes on to talk about this pasuk that this Maamar is based on. It's Machstam. He goes on to explain the meaning of the pasuk this Maamar is based on. And you should command the Jewish people, and they should bring you olive oil. And he explains how the Moshe of every generation connects the Jewish people with Hashem. And the Rebbe's question is, it sounds like from the previous Rebbe's Maamar that there's some relationship between the Moshe, the role of Moshe in every generation, and the Jewish people being crushed in the exile and thereby reaching their core, reaching their essence. It seems like that these two concepts are related. Moshe Rabbeinu allows us to that our faith should be more real, should be inside us, should be something that we know, not just something that we believe, but just something that's certain to us. It's something between us, something that's part of us. And that concept, and the concept of in order to reach your core, you have to be crushed. Those two concepts are related. The question is, why are they related? The emphasis of the previous Rebbe's discourse on the idea of sacrifice, that explains the verse that he quotes, they're crushed to be a source of light. Okay. But the way he phrases it, and he puts us together with the idea of the leader of the Jewish people strengthening our faith, sounds like that those two ideas are related. And the question Rebbe has is, what's the relationship between these two ideas? So to explain this, the Rebbe begins by telling us where faith comes from. What does emunah mean in the first place? Why is it that there's a phenomena by the Jewish people that Jews believe in godliness, they believe in Hashem, they don't need any proofs for this? Why is it that Jews don't need to have proofs? There are various Jewish kiruv organizations that use a method of shock and awe in order to inspire people to keep Judaism. They do is they put everybody in a room and they show them PowerPoints and lectures and they show them the Torah is from Sinai, the Torah is real, and we'll show you the Torah is real because look at this, look how Moshe Rabbeinu said that they're the all kosher animals have two signs, and there are only these the four animals only have one sign, and science hasn't discovered another animal which has only one sign since Torah was given. They talk about how the Talmud says that every fish that has scales has fins, and how there's been so many millions of fish that have been discovered since the time of the Talmud, yet they haven't found a fish that has scales that does not have fins. So they bring you into their room and they try to blow your mind away with this kind of things that prove that the authenticity of Torah. That's one method that many kiruv organizations use. Chabad has a different system. Chabad system is sit down, have some gefilte fish, have some chicken soup, tell me about your life, let's talk let's sing a niggin, let's say l'chaim, on grape juice.
It works.
Yeah. So
I had a guy that came to my house, Shumefer, used to work for me in Kippur. I fast in my heart, it's all good. I don't know, Moshe, you don't have to Friday night. He came maybe for almost 2 years. He used to come. Eventually he came to the Kol Shabbos. Family, Shabbos here.
Wow.
But it took a long time. Gonjish gesagt auf Gonjish.
You never spoke about Judaism with him.
We spoke, but it was like a topic, not.
It wasn't like you won the argument and you proved
exactly.
that Torah is real. So while there's a lot to be said about the value of understanding the authenticity of Torah from the lens of science and the lens of history, and that how that it does add flavor, of course, to human beings, and you hear that. But the value of the Chabad system, I think, is based upon what the Rebbe says over here about why Jews believe in God. Why don't they need proofs? The reason Jews don't need proofs, the Rebbe says, is because of two reasons. There are two reasons why we don't need proofs. We don't need to be proven that the Hashem is true and the Torah is true. We don't need to be proven. Why don't we need to be proven? There's two reasons. Reason number one is because, as we learned in the previous discourse, only part of our soul is in the body, and the part of the soul is in heaven. The part of our soul which is in heaven sees godliness, sees a part of your neshama is attached to the neshama Gan Eden. That's what we learned in the last discourse about thoughts of tshuva that enter our mind sometimes, right? Because the neshama Gan Eden hears the voice of Hashem and says to tshuva. So the neshama Gan Eden is always vividly seeing godliness, and because in the neshama Gan Eden there's a part of me that sees godliness, that informs the soul in my body, and therefore I know this to be true. And I know this to be true. I, as a human being, know this to be true because my soul, my body feels this to be true, knows this to be true. That's one reason why Jews believe in Hashem. Then there's a second reason. The second reason is because the essence of the neshama is a part of God. So therefore, Jews don't need to be told, and Jews don't need any proofs that this is the truth, because their very core is a part of God. So it's not like a core was somewhere hovering in heaven has a part of it that sees godliness, but it's something which is the very essence, the very core. And there's a difference between these two explanations. If you believe in Hashem just because a part of you sees Hashem, so then it's something external. Let's break this down a little bit. It's an analogy that we discussed before, but it's worth repeating because it brings it home. People think that faith is a very weak thing. That I don't know this to be true. I don't have any proof that this is true, but I believe in it. It sounds like it's weak. But Hasidus explains that the strongest kind of
It's a cop-out.
I'm naive, and I give Hashem the benefit of the doubt, so I have some kind of a feeling that this is true. That's how people, in the vernacular, the word faith is used. I have a faith. I just believe this, whatever. And but the truth is that the word emunah, the true meaning of a faith, is the strongest kind of conviction that there is. There is no similar conviction for anything else. Let's say, for example, you are told that there is a burglary in your warehouse, and you discover that all the windows are closed, the door is closed, and indeed all the furniture in your warehouse has been taken, and you're the only one with the key. And you go there with your friend Yankel, and Yankel feels so bad for you, and Yankel, of course, asks you, "No, you have insurance." So, and you're like, forget about insurance for a second. How'd they get in? The doors are closed. I'm the only guy with the key. How'd they get in? So you say to Yankel, Yankel says to you, maybe it's still there. Maybe it's still there. I myself see that it's not there. So why can't Yankel respond? But you understand it has to be here. This morning I was looking for the Maamar. I think I know where to put them, but I'm not relevant. I don't know what I'm doing. But if you understand the logic that something's supposed to be there, and you know for sure, with logic, something's supposed to be there, and yet your response to Yankel is that he's right logically. Logically, it's supposed to be here. You respond to him when he says, maybe it's still here. I myself see that it's not here. Why can't Yankel respond to you, say, but I myself understand that it's supposed to be here? Yankel doesn't say that. Yankel is, okay, you just won the argument. But Yankel can't say, I myself understand that it's supposed to be here, because understanding isn't me. I see that it's not here. That's me. You can't argue with that. I see it. That's when I see something, it's me. But when you say you understand that it's supposed to be, understanding isn't the person itself. Our conviction based on logic isn't our core. When we see something, it flies in the face of things we understand, we know that the truth is based upon what we see with our eyes, not with what we understand with our mind. Our eyes are a much stronger tool to feed our things, to take things authentic to us than our mind. Why?
Isn't there a difference between what you see and you don't see?
Where are you going?
The difference between what you see, you actually see, there's a copy of the guy.
Right. When you see, why is
You don't
that?
see the Maimonides, you don't see the Maimonides. Yeah, here, we just don't see it.
What the idea?
Whatever it is,
The idea of Chassidus says the power of sight is a very strong conviction and touches your very core, and that's why we say I see it's not here, because seeing touches your very core. Understanding doesn't touch your very core. So, but even seeing isn't the deepest part of yourself. Seeing is still not. It's not you. Seeing is very deep, but it's not your core. Just like here, we're talking about the part of your neshama seeing Hashem and Gan Eden. That's certainly not the core of the soul in your body. That's something else. But even the seeing of your sight of your body, when you look at something with your body, it's also not your very core. There's a reason. You know this because you see it. But then there's something else. How do you know that you yourself are here? Do you know that you're here because you see that you're here? You know that you're here because you feel yourself to exist. You are you. You don't know that you're here because you see your fingers. You don't say, oh, I'm going to see if I'm here. Okay, I'm here. You know that you're here because you are you. So that's the meaning of Amunah. Emuna is not only because a part of our neshama sees godliness. That's external. That's something that compared to who we are in our souls and bodies. The reason a Jew knows the truth of Hashem is because the soul is a part of Hashem. It's me. It's not something which I need to be told. That's who I am. So that's why a Jew does not need to have any proofs, because that's who he is. So that perhaps will explain the flow of Maamarim of the Maamar of the previous Rebbe. The previous Rebbe put in the context of discussing the idea of the Jewish people being crushed in the exile. He mentions the idea of the Moshe Rabbeinu feeding us emunah. So what's the connection between these two ideas? How does Moshe Rabbeinu feed us emunah? What does he mean he feeds us emunah? We have emunah. Emunah is who we are.
You sound like the opposite. You sound like you were saying the opposite. That there was a connection between Moshe Rabbeinu and suffering.
Yeah. How is the relationship between Moshe Rabbeinu feeding us emunah and the idea of being crushed in the exile to reach the very core of the neshama? What's the relationship between these concepts? Because what's the meaning of Moshe feeding us emunah? What does it mean that Moshe Rabbeinu feeds us emunah? What Moshe Rabbeinu does is he reveals the essence of the neshama. I was giving an example before about the Chabad's version of Kiruv, that you bring Jews together and just like make them feel Jewish, make them feel that they're Jews. That's the version of Kiruv. You don't have to do anything, just make them feel that they're Jewish. When you sit together as Jews.
Yeah, the other one depends on the research. If you prove that this is here, then this
Right.
is here, but this is where you start.
Right.
So you see that the proof is in the pudding. That's how you see it.
I think that's why I understand it. I think that to help the Jews feel like they're Jewish, and then you already like
You go to the neshama.
you go to Nisha. But our chicken soup and our gefilte fish isn't the same as Moshe Rabbeinu's efforts to reveal the essence of the neshama of a Jew. Moshe Rabbeinu's effort is hard and fast, going straight to the essence of the neshama and to reveal the essence of the neshama should shine. That the essence of the neshama should be revealed. Not just that you should, like you probably saw this video of this guy who had all these questions about faith, and he comes to Rebbe and he asks the Rebbe. You saw this video. I think it's like 50,000 views on YouTube. In short, he comes to Rebbe and he asks about you, the Rebbe, and Rebbe says, "What's your name? Where are you from?" So he tells Rebbe his name, and he says, "Where's Hashem?" And Rebbe tells him, "Everywhere." He says, "I know, but where?" So Rebbe said, "In a rock, in a tree, everywhere." So he says, "I know, but where?" So Rebbe says, "In you and your heart." And in other words, what was his question? His question was, yeah, my mind knows that this is the way it is. I'm not going to argue with you about Hashem being in the rock and in the stone. I'm not going to. I have a different question. As he said, his next question was, he said he had a question about, I don't know the words he used, maybe it was about prejudice, but he wanted to know what's unique about the Jewish people. And he mentioned the Chinese and the Indians. And the Rebbe said, the essence of a Chinese person is to be who he is as a Chinese person. The essence of Indian is to be who he is as an Indian. The essence of a Jew is bound with the essence of Hashem. And that's what the Rebbe did for him by saying to him, "In you and your heart." It wasn't just Rebbe told him information. I could also say, "Yeah, you have Hashem in your heart." They didn't just say it to him. They ever revealed his connection to Hashem in his essence of his neshama, and therefore he didn't need to, and he felt good. He felt at peace. It wasn't something that Rebbe proved. That Rebbe could have went down the direction of Tanya in chapter 3 of Shayucha B'Emunah and proven to him that there must be that the rock has a divine energy within it. Otherwise, how could it exist? They could have gone around, but they didn't go down that route. The Rebbe just revealed in him because of the Rebbe's essence is bound with the essence of every neshama. The Rebbe has revealed his neshama, as we're learning here, that the role of a Moshe of every generation is to reveal the essence of the neshama. So that's on the surface the relationship between the idea of being crushed to be a source for light and the idea of the Moshe of every generation. Just like when we are going through hardship, that allows us to discover our core. so too, Moshe Rabbeinu's role is to allow our faith in Hashem to not just be external, but to be because of our essence. So that's the one sentence of the answer. Moshe Rabbeinu's role is to reveal the essence of the neshama. A similar experience happens, and the Jewish people are crushed in the exile. Their hardship reveals the essence of the neshama. That's how these two concepts are related. They're both about touching the essence. Moshe feeds our samuna. How? By touching our essence. He tries to somehow, as we'll discuss, various tools Moshe Rabbeinu uses to reach the essence of the neshama. And throughout exile, there's also another way the Jewish people touch the essence of the neshama, and that is through their challenges, which was what Mordechai did. Mordechai encouraged Jewish people to keep Torah mitzvahs despite hardships. So he was a Moshe of that generation. He was the one who inspired and encouraged everyone to reach their deepest self and to defy the decree of Haman. Mesiras Nefesh is only possible because of the essence of the neshama. Mesiras Nefesh is not what people think used in the vernacular word Mesiras Nefesh. When people use the word Mesiras Nefesh, they're talking really about business. People say, you should give your life rather than give up your Judaism. Mesiras Nefesh means to die at the stake rather than give up your Judaism. So it's possible you do all those great things, person actually dies on Kiddush Hashem, but what he's thinking about is getting Gan Eden. I'm going to get Gan Eden. I do this, I'm going to get Gan Eden. Hashem's going to reward me for this. And that's not Mesiras Nefesh. That's called business. I'm going to give up this life to get that life. Mesiras Nefesh means to give over your desire, to give over your soul. The previous Rebbe put it this way. They're very deep words, so you have to think about the words in it. They're not so simple. The words the previous Rebbe said were Mesiras Nefesh means Azoy nit anders. Mesiras Nefesh means this is the way it is and not different. In other words, Mesiras Nefesh is that you're steadfast and you say you cannot sever your bond with Hashem. It's not about what you may get. It's not about a decision. It's Mesiras Nefesh is the exposure of the essence of the soul, where at that point, from the perspective of the essence of the soul, as Alter Rebbe said, a Jew does not want and cannot sever his bond with Hashem. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing as severing your bond with Hashem. You understand? You don't understand. Good. I'm glad you understand that. Mesiras Nefesh means that it's not that I want to give up my life rather than give up my Judaism. Mesiras Nefesh means that I can't bow down to the cross. Chas v'shalom. I can't give up my Judaism. Mesiras Nefesh means that there is no other choice. So that, where does that come from? If I have a proof for Hashem's truth, okay, so it doesn't touch my very core. So I could say, okay, I have a proof. I see. If I'm believing in Hashem, because my Hashem Gan Eden sees Hashem, that's external. That's not my very core. Who says I may give my life? I may not give my life. There's a part of me which isn't affected. There's a part of me which isn't touched. There's a Hashem Gan Eden sees Hashem. Okay, then there's me. There's who I am. So it's not certain that I'm going to give my life away because it hasn't touched my core. But if I believe in Hashem, because I believe in Hashem, because that's my very essence, is a part of Hashem. So it's something that's touched my very being, and therefore there's nothing else that I have. That's who I am. I'm speaking in French a little bit. I'm trying to say it in English. Let me first say what Mesiras Nefesh means. Mesiras Nefesh means that you're steadfast and nothing could shake you, and nothing could break you, and you have this, I have to do this because I don't want to lose my connection to Hashem. The reason why Jews have always chosen the sword over the cross throughout history is because a Jew does not want to separate himself from Hashem. A Jew cannot separate himself from Hashem. It's not just it's not a decision. It's just this bond that a Jew, even though technically you could bow down and then you could do tshuva later and then you could still be a good Jew. But the Jews have always said, no, I'd rather die. Why? Because the connection Jew to Hashem is something unfathomable. It's like you can't separate yourself from Hashem. Your very core is one with Hashem. And
that's why you can't convert, right? There's no
it's not. That's another point. That our conversion isn't real because it defies who we are as Jews, right? It defies our very essence, right? It's not real when you convert to another religion, 100%. But bring this home. The Alter Rebbe says in chapter 25 in Tanya that every mitzvah connects you to Hashem, and every sin chas Hashem distances you from Hashem. Absolutely, it separates you from Hashem. Externally, when you do an avera, the word avera means to move over to a new place. You're really leaving the jurisdiction of God and you're moving over to a place that's separate from godliness. So a Jew doesn't want to go there. Doesn't want to be a separate. A Jew loves Hashem. Doesn't want to separate himself from Hashem. So therefore, when we talk about challenges to wake up in the morning, or challenges to get stuck, or challenges to have that meaning. So the Alter says we're able to use that power that the Jews have always used to choose the sword of the cross, to choose getting up over going to sleep. We're able to use that because every mitzvah connects to Hashem and every separates us. So the whole Tanya is built on this idea that we should channel our power of sacrifice to deal with our day-to-day challenges and to realize that the same things are at stake. But when we're talking about giving stock or wake up in the morning or davening or whatever, the same things are at stake. It's connecting or Chatz Hashem separating. That's what Alter wants us to live with. That's the long short road in Tanya. Tanya's long short. In Tanya itself is a long short road. Okay, we'll learn Tanya another time. But you're right. This is the among the long short road. This is the short road to reveal the hidden love to ask for Hashem. Here, the Rebbe is saying that the reason why this is so real to us, the Eibish's presence and this decision to connect it, to disconnect, Chas Hashem, it's so real to us because this is our very essence. It was something we learned about, it was something that we were proven that's there. It wouldn't speak to us all the time. It could be we would, could be we wouldn't. The reason why it's impossible. It's out of the question. It's out of decision. It's not should I or shouldn't I? It's impossible. It's because this is our very essence. Because we don't. There were these little kids. I'll come with the story. There were little kids who were studying in Soviet Russia with the Chassidish Malam. They had their teacher, and they were studying in a basement somewhere. And a KGB officer runs in there, and he arrests the teacher and he arrests the students and puts the students in an orphanage. And before Pesach, the boys are deciding what they should do for Pesach, and they can't figure out anything. They have no options. And so the next day, they're served bread, and they don't eat the bread. Next day, they serve bread again. They don't eat the bread, and somehow they survived. I don't know how, but I know my grandfather. He fasted for 8 days. I don't know how he survived either. In jail in Soviet Russia. Maybe he had sugar and water, I'm not sure. Either way, they survived as well. And they said later, we realized according to halacha, we weren't allowed to do this. We weren't allowed to give our lives rather than not eat the chametz. But we couldn't, it was unfathomable to eat the chametz. How could we eat the chametz? How could we separate ourselves from Hashem? In other words, they looked at this chametz as separating itself from Hashem. How can you do that? It's impossible. That kind of feeling, it's impossible. That childlike expression of innocence and truth that I don't want to separate myself from my tati. That's in the very essence of the soul. Because the essence of the soul is one with Hashem. When Jew converts to Chas Hashem, that's because it's like a child never saw his father. There's no